Okay, so it says it's just setting up the YouTube live feed, but if you want to get started, then we can do that.
Well, as long as we can get started, we might as well.
All right, so I'll start us off. The August 6, 2020 meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission is about to be convened as a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of coronavirus. This meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Kelly Grant, and I will be moderating participation for this meeting. I will now turn it over to the chair of the meeting.
Thank you, Kelly. My name is Ed Hoops. I'm the chairman of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission. I will begin by taking a roll call for quorum. David Bernstein. David is here. Rick Bishop is not here. Tom Durkin.
Here.
Ed Hoops is here. Paul Huggins.
Here.
Ellie Lawrence is not here. And Patricia Mulhern.
Here.
All right, we have, with a quorum present, we have 5 members present. I will now call the meeting to order. I will now ask the moderator to explain how remote participation works. Kelly.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 23, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching via this virtual meeting or the live feed on the Town of Yarmouth YouTube channel. You may also listen to the meeting by dialing in to the number provided on the meeting notice. We will also post a recording of this meeting on the Town of Yarmouth website as soon as we are able. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges with the virtual meeting. To reduce confusion during the meeting, all participants will be muted by the moderator. As participants are called upon to speak, they will be unmuted. Applicants can raise their hand, use the raise hand button, or press *9 on their phone to identify themselves to the chair. The meeting host will then unmute the applicant when they are called upon to speak. During the portion of the hearing designated for public comment, the chair or moderator will ask who in the audience has any public comments or questions. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be able to make comments using the raise hand button via the virtual meeting, or if you are dialed into the phone, you can press *9 on your phone to indicate that you would like to comment. Please wait for the chairman to recognize you before speaking. Members of the public who wish to provide comment are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record and then provide their comments. Prior to concluding opportunities for discussion, comment, or question, the chair will ask a final time if anyone wishes to speak on the matter. All votes will be roll call votes. After a motion is made and there is a second, the chair will ask the moderator to take the roll call vote. The moderator will then report the vote. All motions, decisions, documents, and letters will be verbally read into the record. If it appears that the meeting cannot or should not proceed, then the moderator will recommend that the chair request to continue the hearing to a later date and time or until public meetings can resume normally. I will now hand the meeting back to the chair.
Thank you, Kelly. So we will get there right into the first order of business, which is a request for determination of applicability. This is a continued hearing from July 16th. This is for Aunt Edith's Neighborhood Association on Edith's Road, South Yarmouth, replacement in kind of 10 12-inch pilings associated with the licensed pier in Bass River. I think this is Dan Ojala is here for this. If you want to unmute him. And
there's also somebody with their hand raised. I don't know if they're here in relation to this hearing. Do you want me to?
All right, so yeah, so if, could you unmute 781-864-4047? Could you, or do you have a question?
Seven 781-864-4047. You're unmuted if you wanted to speak. You have your hand raised.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm just listening.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. All right, so Dan, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Hoops. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Chairman, members of the commission, and Kelly, thank you for your patience in reviewing this proposal. We had, as you recall, had some discussions on this prior. The commission expressed their concerns over the overall length, although it's a shared pier, which is, of course, encouraged by the regulations. Not that everyone gets their own, but that many people can, share one, and you get the economies of scale of just having one set of piles out into the water rather than numerous. There were, some concerns over the licensing. Our firm had actually licensed this original, and it's kind of a little bit of a hodgepodge of pilings that were out there back in the day. Some 4x10, 6x10, 8x20s, a couple more 8x10s, and some 4x12s, a 4x10, all put together. And it's pretty much enjoyed that same configuration for many years. It was inadvertently, in the seasonality of pulling things in and out. And there were some changes to the south end and some modest little bump outs here and there to make it work better that were done. And so the association does agree, though, that we're longer than the original license, and they're perfectly willing to work with the commission and shorten it up. As you recall, they had a vote and they all agreed. We'll go ahead and shorten it right up to the same running length of footage that was on the prior approval and license. And so to that end, we now propose to remove the southernmost float in its entirety from the license. That will take that last pile and bring it about 21 feet or so to the northwest. The newest plan is dated 7/14/2020. And there's some additions on there. I went out and reshot everything. So every single pile is accurate GPS location, just right. And every float is accurate, nice locations, just right. Before it was a little bit plus or minus. We had some older GPS shots from a few years ago, and things move from year to year a little tiny bit. But in any event, this is a very accurate picture of what is proposed. We threw some state plane coordinates on there. So it'll be tied down for posterity. So with the commission's approval, when we're replacing all these piles under the existing license, we'll go ahead and take that southernmost one and put it on the inside of the last float. The overall float length will then be below the permitted linear footage. The three northern floats are the totally original 50 foot in length. The outer float is still 8x20. In total, and the southern floats will now be 40 in length, less than the licensed 42 foot length of floats. The association would request that the widths of the floats be permitted to remain as shown. There's some 1 foot wide pieces you can see that were tacked on those northernmost floats. And this is it's a common pier, so they use it a lot, and they've got a lot of little boats that share it. And those piles where they stick out beyond the float are a constant source of, ramming in and, marring your fiberglass and so forth. So they had a nice solution where they just basically outrigged the center of the float so that the piles are recessed in and the boats can run up and down the side of that float system without bumping into the pile or the chain or the hoop that goes around the pile, which can really damage a boat, especially if it's windy and it's banging up against it. So I think that's a very safe thing. It'll help protect against damage to boats, and therefore cracks in the environment and everything else is somewhat more protected. So we think that's a modest request. It would be well within the 10% change, which would be generally allowed under the licensing procedure. They're 7 foot wide instead of the 6. And again, that helps some of those smaller boats on the inside from bumping the piles. And the southernmost floats, the 8x20 is per the license. That was an equivalent of 2 8x10s. It'll be 6x20 instead of the permitted 4x22 on the southernmost. So that, again, it was kind of like the house that Jack built before with all the different sizes. Whoever had the float put it out there, and then we just went ahead and permitted it. But now it's a little bit more consistent now, you can see, and a little bit more sensical. So it's just a 6x20 instead of the 4x22. So hopefully that's reasonable to the commission. As was previously requested, the piles are in need of replacement. So it's basically an in-kind replacement. They're 10 to 12 inch in size, and there's a number of them, as you can see from the plan. But again, that is per the license. Hopefully the commission feels that this minor realignment modification to the shared pier ramp float system utilized by the association is acceptable, and then we can revise the license plans and the appropriate authorities accordingly. the shared use piers are suggested by the Yarmouth Conservation Commission regulations, and support for this minor change to the common use of the waterway area is greatly appreciated. I'd be glad to answer any questions if you do have them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Commissioners, any questions?
No,
Really good. Kelly, any comments, concerns?
No, I put a table up here just so you can get a better idea of the different dimensions as were permitted, as were built, and then as are proposed now, just so you can get an idea of the square footages. And then that previous slide gives you a better idea with the relative lengths and how they match up pretty well to what was permitted. The only other comment I had is that we didn't receive a paper copy of this plan. So if this is the final plan, we'll just need to get a paper copy of that for the file.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience, attendees, that would like to make any comments on this proposal? If not, if this would be the time to raise your digital hand if you have any comments on this. I see no hands amongst the audience. Final discussion amongst the panelists, or sorry, the commissioners. Not, would somebody like to make a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, did somebody? No? All right, would somebody like to make a motion then? We're looking for a -2 and 6 for this. And also I would ask that we don't issue until we receive the hard copy of the plan. So again, is there a motion to that effect?
make the motion, so moved.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second, David.
Thank you. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Sure. Can I just also ask that once the work is completed, the certificate of compliance be filed?
Oh,
for
yeah,
the-
I'm sorry.
for
Thank
the
you.
doc-
Yeah,
the
Tom, you good with that?
Yes,
David?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's amended then.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Durkin?
yes, aye,
Bernstein?
Aye.
Hoops?
Aye.
Huggins?
Aye.
Mulhern? Mulhern?
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much for your time.
Thank you,
We'll
Dan.
certainly get the copies right in for you. Thank you.
All right, next order of business is a notice of intent from Douglas Richards, 63 Park Avenue, Yarmouth, Massachusetts. Proposed addition to a single-family dwelling within the buffer zone to a salt marsh, BVW, and coastal bank. And who is representing this project?
This is Dan Ogeler again.
Oh, Dan, okay. That makes it easy. All right, Dan, go ahead. Dan, you're still muted.
Good afternoon. Again, members of the commission, for the record, my name is Dan Ogeler. You can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I'm a surveyor and engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouth Port, and helping Doug Richards out with a pretty straightforward project here at 63 Park Ave in West Yarmouth. He's working with a well-known local builder, Chris Kenny, to put a couple of additions basically over some existing deck that's permitted at this site. I got to commend the owner. He's got a kind of a zero escape yard. A lot of times you've got lush lawn it needs a lot of attention and produces nitrogen into the sensitive areas. This is basically, it looks like a Cape Cod beach, a sandy beach. I've never really seen anything like it, but he says it's fine to maintain and he's happy to keep it that way. So I thought that was pretty unusual and pretty nice to see someone that kept a nice arid buffer. It doesn't require irrigation. It doesn't require fertilizer. And there's a nice fence around it, which demarcates where you can walk and where you would be on a coastal bank or into a resource area. So he's basically infilling in these two areas. There's some existing deck and so forth there now. Just a tiny little corner, almost a de minimis amount of a few inches sticks out over where there's an existing approved deck. And so we thought this was a reasonable request. Again, if you look at the aerials and overheads, the buildings on either side of us are proud of us by quite a bit. Where kind of there's a little embayment that sticks in, or it's not so much an embayment. There's a little neck that doesn't allow the tide to get in, except if you get a moon tide or a storm surge, it'll come in there. But it does support, some brackish water and some vegetation in there, and it's good habitat, and we're happy to leave it there. The fill that the house was originally permitted under, and it was kind of a checkered past or storied past. It was kind of an interesting file to go through, but anyway, it's been there for many years, and it's a nice environment now. But that does create a kind of a man-made coastal bank. And so that's the most landward resource area that is, kind of a wetlands type resource area. And again, it's an open sand area. It's very low impact. The additions are over the deck, and it's not impacting very much that we can see. I would note that we did do a narrative for the project, to some photographs and so forth. The alternatives, again, we're looking to expand the living area. Its habitable space footprint is only a little bit over where it isn't permitted, and it's perhaps 1,000 square foot. The shape of the lot, the limited space on which to build, and the presence of the wetland, expanding horizontally beyond the current footprint really isn't an option. So we kind of got to go up. By expanding vertically and also horizontally within the existing footprint, the impacts are almost non-existent. We are going to be bringing in dry wells for the roof runoff. It's pretty sandy now, and there's not much of a problem, but perhaps during a bigger event, we might get some runoff, and so that should be mitigated. We feel that the proposed construction will not be negatively impacting the interest protected under the Act or the Yarmouth regulations. And our narrative does go through the bank and the salt marsh. And again, it's what we feel is reasonable. And I think it's nice that he's keeping that sort of xeriscape landscape, a couple of yucca plants, and that's about it for that whole front yard. Whereas most places that have a putting green out there with all kinds of fertilizer and chemicals. So I thought that was kind of a nice touch, and but we'd be glad to answer any questions that you do have on this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Commissioners? Nothing among the commissioners?
I'd like to hear what Kelly has to say. There seems to be a number of situations that exist: an open order, a COC that was issued for superseding conditions. I'd just like to get Kelly's take on some of this.
Okay, Kelly, you want to?
Sure. So I guess to start off with, we don't have an SE number yet for this project, so we will need to wait for DEP to issue that. So there is some history with the property. I reviewed the file, and there was a superseding order issued by DEP, superseded a local order. And there is a certificate of compliance that was issued by the state for that. I think there is still a COC required for the order that was issued under the bylaw. So more a administrative task that needs to be undertaken because the order was closed out under the state regulations. There's a couple of things. Obviously, they're asking for a variance to the 50-foot setback for the addition. Again, there's the interpretation as well as to if this is a small addition, then the 35-foot setback would apply. So still requires a variance to the 35-foot setback to that coastal bank. The coastal bank marks the edge of the velocity zone and the coastal A zone, but that isn't indicated on the plan. So it would be good to have the different flood zones shown on the different parts of the property shown on the plan. And just as a reminder, the velocity zone indicates that there is the potential for waves over 3 feet in height during a 100-year storm or a 1% chance storm. So it is kind of a high energy environment, or the potential for a high energy environment during a large storm. There also the coastal A zone does show on the FEMA flood maps as well. So that should be indicated on the plan. And then the only other thing was that they're just looking at the aerial photos over time, there has been vegetation at the property in the sand area in the past. So you can just see a 2016, 2018 image. So the property's kind of been managed in different ways. Most of the vegetation beyond the fence is invasive or heavily impacted by invasives. There's been, as you can see here, there's an area of knotweed that's been probably just repeatedly cut each season to maintain the height of it down. Obviously, it doesn't solve the issue of the invasives. They'll tend to come back denser when they're cut. So they're just more or less trying to keep the invasives at bay from the property there. And I think that's all the comments that I have.
Thank you.
Hey, Kelly, where is that stand of knotweed in relation to the aerial photo to the left, the Google Earth photo?
That was on this side here. So do you see my cursor on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that side of the property. And then the other photo where you can see on this one with the cutting, with, you know, was that just that gap beside the fence where the frag is, that's over on this side here. But most of this area beyond the fence all around here is heavily impacted by knotweed and bittersweet and Phragmites. And I don't know what type of vegetation they would have had up in this area that has been since cleared.
I would imagine that's very likely just those invasives jumping the fence.
Yeah, it looks very similar in this aerial in terms of its coloring and form.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not real keen on the idea of somebody repeatedly knocking knotweed and just by cutting, because I mean, with knotweed, all you're doing is you're just making it worse. I know it's bad. I know it's terrible, but I mean, I can't force you to do an invasives management program, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, if the homeowner would be amenable to it, I'd certainly like him to consider something like that. I mean, again, I'm not tying that to this permit at all, but you know, cutting that knotweed, you just, if you leave an inch of a stem or a stalk or a flower or anything else on it, next thing you know, you got 15 knotweed plants growing in its place. So that's my only real concern about that. But anything else amongst the commission? Or any of the attendees or public have any comments? Raise your hand electronically if you do.
See any hands raised? In
Seeing none. Last chance amongst the for public comment. All right, Kelly, any further comments on this?
No. Oh, the one comment I missed was that on the previous slide, this plan, I put these two up just to show what was previously permitted on the site and then what's being proposed. And this shows a proposed brick patio in this area, but I did find on file a deck in that area that was signed off under a building permit application. So that deck was constructed with the correct permitting.
And was it deck then in the corner, or Yeah, where
Sorry?
where the proposed additions, that is deck currently.
It is deck currently, yeah. I think
Right.
it extends a little bit beyond the existing footprint in the corner here.
Literally not many more than
But, yeah.
12 inches or so, it's a tiny, tiny little incursion. The dry wells, I think, would easily compensate for that, in my opinion. Yeah, and it was a brick patio, and that's right, Jim Brandolini or someone issued a permit for the deck over the patio type of a situation. So I failed to mention that, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern with that, again, with the variance on this is that, I mean, the reason that house is sitting looking like it is under the previous permit was because those decks are coming out right probably at the 35 foot, I would imagine. So that's my only concern, is that, now we're going to go ahead and give another 4 feet to that. But I mean, I do recognize Dan's comments that the area is essentially sand. It's not a lawn. I mean, if it were a lawn, I'd be saying no right away. But I do recognize that. So that's just my comments. If nobody else has any further comments or concerns, questions, would somebody like to make a motion?
Just a reminder that we don't have a file
so-
number for this
I'm
project.
sorry, yes. So this will only be, you can make the motion. We only need to, but we need to wait for the DEP file number.
Yeah, so we could close the hearing and then just continue for the number.
Right. We'll so we won't take any new testimony at the next hearing. So would somebody like to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Well,
David.
Okay.
Do you want me to say more?
No, so we're going to go ahead and issue the
Variance.
variance. Okay. And so Kelly will assign the orders of conditions, and again, this is going to be continued to August 20th, right?
That's
For the
right.
SE number. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
I didn't hear. Was that Paul?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All of those, I'm sorry, Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Oops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
So the motion carries 5-0, and that's to issue the variance for me to write the conditions for the permit under the bylaw, and to continue to the August 20th meeting to receive the file number.
All right, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you very much, Commissioners, for your careful consideration, and the applicants really appreciate the unique situation here and your approvals. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dan. Let's see, our next order of business, another notice of intent. This one was continued from July 16th, 2020. This is for SE 83-2239, Kevin Cooper, 17 and 19 Eldridge Road, Yarmouth. A proposed raising an existing dwelling, construction of new flood zone compliant dwelling, and Title V septic system within land subject to coastal storm flowage. And I believe that's another Dan, right? Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, but you guys pretty much approved this one. You were just going to note on the approval a few trees to be added. Were we waiting for an SC number or something? I don't really recall.
Yeah, that's right. We closed the hearing and continued to receive the file number, and there was just the requirement to specify the number of trees to be replaced, which would be native, but otherwise at the discretion of the property owner. Now, I was contacted by a couple of abutters to this project since the last meeting, but I don't see anyone with their hand raised in the audience, and they did receive their notification in time for the previous hearing. So I think that the public hearing was closed on this at the last meeting.
Okay, is there any further discussion among the commission then? Kelly, you're good then?
Yeah, so if you just want to specify the number of trees to be replaced, and then just include in the motion that I will write the special conditions for the order.
Okay, did anybody have any thoughts on number of trees?
How many trees are being taken down?
2, I believe.
Was it 2?
No,
No, all of them
No,
on the lot.
I was
So
gonna
lot.
say,
Oh,
maybe
okay.
upward of maybe 20 trees, maybe.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I didn't do a count.
You can see 7 in this picture, just looking at it.
Yeah, there'll be the front and that left-hand side, and then around the back, there's probably maybe another 10.
Well, that's a denuding.
Yes, completely.
so.
Well, if they want solar panels, I mean, it is flood zone only, folks. Don't forget that. It's not like we've got a sensitive resource area. It's just a nice gesture to put a few trees back, and we agreed to that. What about just say 6.5-inch caliper deciduous trees, native species interspersed around the site? They may do more, but I think it'd be a little heavy-handed to require more than 5 or 6. That would be my 2 cents.
Is it because of solar panels that why they're clearing those trees, Dan?
No,
Or
it's
is
the
it
darn
just
flood zone.
general
You gotta
site?
raise everything up, and you need a great big septic system, and then of course you want swales so that the water doesn't run to the neighbors. So we gotta grade all that. It just ends up, you need quite a bit of work to get all this in a modern, raised up septic and flood zone compliant to sea levels rising, and everything's gonna go up. But those
Okay.
trees will grow. I mean, if you put 5 or 6 trees, they'll be huge in no time, and it'll be like nothing ever happened.
Okay, so do you want to say 6 2-inch, 6 trees in the 2 to 3-inch caliper range?
Excuse me, this is Pat. The last time we had a discussion on this property, we talked about other vegetation around the whole perimeter. Just something for runoff.
Yeah, I'm sorry, folks. I'm not remembering at all. That's my fault, but
So yeah, we talked about replacing some perimeter vegetation. So those trees that are being replaced, if they were around the perimeter of the property.
Dan, if you're looking at solar panels, they could be placed on either the forward slanting roof or the rear. It would seem to me, because the southern exposure is on the side. Am I correct?
Yeah, north is up, so any of the roof line on the facing
The front or back
southern
will
abutter
work,
would
right?
be the prime angle, yeah, in the northern hemisphere, yeah.
I see. Okay, that,
you're
Yeah.
getting rid of most of those for the septic system anyhow, along the south side, right?
Yeah, in the berm, yeah. I mean,
So
we may be able to well a couple of them, and we'll certainly look at that carefully because, and the solar panels are not a certainty, but it's always a nice option. So we'll look at saving what we can for sure, but that's you run out of room pretty quickly on a 120 by 120 lot.
yeah,
just
so I'd
not
say
possible.
why don't you do the 6 trees on the north side and then provide some you might want to consider doing some sort of shrub type layer. You might be able to work something out with the between the berm and or on around the sides of the berm, that sort of thing.
Sure.
I mean, the fact remains it's a floodplain filing, and I mean it is what it is for that. So
yeah, it would be a little bit unusual. There's not really any strong performance standards except don't increase the runoff to the neighbors, and I think we're certainly meeting that very, very handily. And so we don't want to get in a situation where the owner is very, very upset with the board for doing something unusual. But I think if why don't we just leave it at 5 or 6, and then depending if we do the panels or not, we can intersperse them. And everybody likes privacy, and if they want to put a little fence or some native plantings along the berm, it'll take care of itself. I think we're probably overthinking this one a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. I think if you go with the 2 to 3 inch caliber trees placed around the property, I'm good with that.
Sounds reasonable.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the proposal, standard conditions, and the planting of 6 trees, 2 to 3 inch caliber. Anything
All right.
else on that?
I think you got it. And then is there a second?
Second, David.
David seconded. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Sorry, Durkin? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Tom?
Tom? Did I-
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Bernstein?
Aye.
Oops.
Aye.
Huggins?
Aye.
Mulhern?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Next order of business is another continued notice of intent from July 16th for SE 83-2235, Robert and Barbara Troop for 20 River Drive, Yarmouth, Massachusetts. Proposed access stairs, bulkhead, and fiber rolls on the coastal bank to Bass River.
Hello there. Mark Burgess with Shorefront Consulting, representing the troops who may or may not be on the line. I'm not certain.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
So we submitted a revised plan, and we looked at all of the items that the commission was concerned about last time. So we were able to move the staircase over 7 feet to the northeast. And while it overlaps the bulkhead now, I didn't have to extend it. Greg Berman wanted the bulkhead to go under the stairs. And when we first looked at it, we would have had to extend the bulkhead, but we don't. We brought the stairway to the bulkhead. So the bulkhead's in the same exact configuration that it was shown initially. We shortened the lower landing to 4x4. We added a trigger point for the sediment monitoring notes for monitoring that as well. And then I overlaid the mitigation. That's the blue hatch. That's the mitigation from the previous house order that needs to be closed out. And as you can see, it's pretty much where all the vegetation is, except for the area of the timbers southeast of the steps that those plantings didn't survive. So the idea is to require those plantings to be reinstalled before any of the new stair work occurs. Let's see. Oh yeah, so, and a note was added to leave a 4-foot wide access path at the bottom. And then the remaining of that area is allowed to naturalize. And I recommend keeping the order open so we can monitor how things are going on. First for the trigger point, and second to see how the areas are naturalizing and the new plantings. And that way, if anything at the bottom needs to be augmented at some point, we can add them if needed. Yeah, as I said, we expect a condition to monitor both areas for 3 years. So that's the summary of the revisions. I think we addressed the concerns that the commission had. So with that, I'll open it to questions.
Okay, thank you, Mark. The question I have is, what's with the 6x8 landing in the middle of the steps going down the bank? I'm not big on that at all.
Yeah, Kelly mentioned that to me when we spoke yesterday. It's similar to the stairway that's next door to them, to the southeast. That's the one you guys walk down to get to the bottom of the hill. So they have a little area off to the side of the middle rest landing that has a bench there. And of course they see that and they're like, well, we'd kind of like to be able to do that there too, because they don't have anywhere to hang out at the bottom. And so that was the reason for it. They wanted a landing there to put a small bench. The landing's required because as a rest stop, but that's the reason for the increased width. It has to be, it's got to be 6 feet wide. Well, which width? It's got to be 6 feet in the dimension of the stairs so I can maintain 18 inches off the grade. That's fixed. It's the width beyond the 4 foot width that they would like to see another 4 feet. So you allow 2 feet for a bench and you've got just a little place to rest and hang out.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you, I mean, I get the fact that you have to have the rest point at the midpoint, and I have no problem with the 6 foot by 4 foot to maintain the width of the stairs. But I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're insistent on moving and keeping that extension, it's a no for me. So that's my only comment on the whole thing. So.
Okay, I guess let's wait to hear from the others then.
Okay, yep. Commissioners.
I have a question about the kayak rack.
David, go ahead.
Where exactly is the kayak rack? Is it on the stairs or?
Yeah, it hangs off the lower landing. See where the arrow is?
Oh, okay. I have that someplace, but yeah, okay.
Can you see it on the screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do see it.
Okay. Yeah, they're above the ground at about the height that you can grab them and then walk out the path and launch them on the beach.
Okay. And Ed, could you educate me why you are against the 6 by 8 landing?
I think it's more work onto the bank that I mean, there's no reason for it. I mean, I get that you'd like to have that, but I just don't see that there's a real reason for adding what you're going to be doing two more holes for two more support posts. I don't see that that's necessary a necessary impact to the bank. So it's just simple, straightforward that way.
Thank you.
We discuss that a little further, please. Ed?
I mean, I don't know what else I can say. I mean, I think by putting out the.
I want to ask a question about it. And
okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the width of the stairs is they're 4 feet wide.
Yes.
Okay, and so the width of the stairs is 4 feet wide, and you want to make the width of that particular area, is it 6 feet wide or 8 feet wide?
As compared to the width of the stairs, it's 8 feet.
8 feet, so it'd be doubling that. So it would go to, and so it'd be, I'm sorry, it'd be 6. So it'd be a length of 6 feet and a width of 8 feet, correct? In that landing that you want to do?
Correct.
Okay.
And the same amount of posts are required to support that landing. It's not like we need extra supports into the ground. So there's virtually no additional structure in the ground per se. All of it's above the grade.
All right. So could would it pose a difficulty if you just made that one little section, let's say, instead of 4 feet wide, like the rest of the stairs, make that section 6 feet wide, so there'd be a little place to sit and rest there?
So a 6 by 6 instead of a 6 by 8?
Well, you're saying 6 by 6, but you said the width of the stairs is 4 feet, right? Or am I mistaken?
Correct. So it could be 6 by 6 instead of 6 by 8. We would shorten the 8 foot width down to 6 feet.
Yeah. So would that be a compromise?
I think they would be amenable to that. That keeps a straight shot down through if you're trying to carry a kayak or something, but it still allows them to sit without obstructing the passage.
And I'm sorry, what is the overall length of the stairway?
I didn't measure it. Hang on. It's the plan's a 20 scale. 1 second. Now this is the seagull's eye view. Okay, it's actually longer if you measure it along the plane of the bank, but
Yeah, right.
looking down the way you're looking at it right there in the plan.
Yeah.
Oh, I can measure it that way too.
It's like,
I'm just getting an idea how much of a rest you're gonna need, how long it is, you know?
Oh.
Carrying stuff down or whatever.
That's sort of based on the building codes.
Yeah,
So these stairways aren't, coastal stairways aren't required to meet the building code, but that's not to say that we don't try to, because obviously it's a good idea.
Sure.
So in a residential dwelling, I think every 8 or 10 steps, you're supposed to have a resting landing, and that's required by code. So we try to follow that.
Sure.
And the reason is, if somebody was to slip and fall, they fall basically 10 feet instead of tumbling for 20.
Yep.
That's the idea.
all right. So Ed, what do you think of that? Make it
I-
6 by 6 instead of 6 by 8.
Yeah, I know that's exactly what you say. That's what, and that's what you know, you're gonna say, oh, you're only gonna need the 4 supports, even with the 6 foot.
Mhm.
But I know, in my own mind is like when they start actually doing the actual construction, you end up getting 4 for the landing, and then 2 more for the extension there. So again, it's just, I mean, that's just my opinion. You know, and if the rest of the board is happy with that, then, you know, by all means, you know, and you're more comfortable with the 6 by 6, you know, by all means, go ahead and ask for that. I mean, that's I'm just one commissioner making my vote, so.
I get that. Well, wouldn't it be kind of cantilevered over rather than have the support, you know, would you?
You can do it either way.
Yeah.
There's no reason to use more than 4 posts to mount that. And you'd need 4, whether it was 4 by 4 or 4 by 6. If you wanted to keep the posts in line with the stairs, then yes, that extra 2 feet can cantilever over. You can go 50% with a beam on a cantilever.
Okay.
So that would be
I'm
perfect.
comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
I'm comfortable with that too, 6 by 6.
I thought it was 4 by 6. I'm getting confused now.
The in the view that you're looking at on the screen, the 6 foot is in the left to right direction.
Right.
And that's required to keep the stairs 18-inch. If I narrow that landing to 4 feet, then the bottom landing hits the grade, which we don't want to do. So it has to project out far enough along the over the bank to have the stairs stay more than 18 inches away. So that 6 foot dimension is fixed, but the width of it beyond the 4 foot width of the stairs, that's where the 8 foot dimension is. And I'm sure that the applicants would be fine with 6 foot.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Paul, any further questions?
No, thank you.
Anybody else on the commission?
Thank you.
I have a question on some of the vegetation. It was just showing that some of it's going to be allowed to naturalize, and it was noted that maybe we should look at some native planting instead, so that invasives don't get in there.
This is referring to the area down by the lower landing.
Yes, down at the lower landing, just to keep the invasive plants out and monitor it for a while to see how it's going.
I agree. I mean, we definitely want to monitor it. Yeah, it's the picture to the left. We definitely want to monitor that. We're not really sure what's going to grow back. When we were down there, there were some of the natives trying to pop up back through. So you can, my suggestion is see what comes back naturally first. If it's invasives, those could be treated before they get out of hand. And if it's naturals, let them go. And then maybe next season we look at it and see if we need to diversify or not.
Okay.
And that can be conditioned that way. You
Okay.
can have an annual inspection if you want.
Okay, that's good.
I'll need Kelly's help on that because I'm not a plant guy.
Okay.
Sorry, Kelly.
No, I mean, I'm all for that, but I think that's something that I don't think we should put the onus on Kelly for going out and certifying it. I think we need to put it on the applicant. And I mean, I'm fine with you, you know, condition where we could condition it for, you know, to do that. I think myself, I would rather go with I would just rather see it planted outright and be done with it. But either way, you're going to be requiring some sort of monitoring. If you leave it to naturalize on its own, you're going to want to have somebody come by and do the monitoring on an annual basis and provide some sort of a report on what's growing there. If you plant it with natives, you're going to want to have somebody produce a report that that basically says, okay, this is the overall health of the planted area. So either way, we have to condition that. It's just whether or not you want to condition based on a planting plan or condition on the idea that you're going to let it try and it naturalize. But either way, I would say that it would be the responsibility of the owner to get a landscape, either a landscape or horticultural professional to do the report and submit that to the commission.
Okay, I understand that. I think what I meant was that we could look at it after a year, and if you guys aren't okay with this, I totally get that. I was just thinking that myself and Kelly could go down there and look at it. She could see if it was good enough, and then and go from there, and and tell us what plants. But I totally understand if you want a landscaper to do that. Kelly's got plenty to do. She doesn't need to.
Right.
I get it.
Right. That's my only. Because like I said, you know, well, you know how it works out. Then
Yeah.
you know you end up spending a lot more time than what you think, trying to assess that. So.
Yeah, that's okay. I get it.
I mean, unless Kelly's just dying to get out there and do another report, but
I'm good, thanks.
I don't see her. I don't see her jumping up for that. So
No.
So that would be my suggestion. I'm okay if you want to try and leave it and see what comes in naturally, but I hope something good comes in, but based on what I'm seeing there, I'm not real confident, but we'll see.
So we would provide you with with some pictures and an evaluation report after, like, next spring.
Yeah, would have to. I would say probably May, like, you know, by May. Well, let's say May 15th, because that way by that time you'll have plenty of stuff growing. You'll be able to sort of see what's coming in at that point.
Yeah, and it won't be too hot to augment it if we need to.
Right. I mean, if you're gonna have to augment, you're gonna have to do that in the fall anyhow. So, you know, I mean, that's.
Yep.
All right. Anything else amongst the commission?
So Ed, Paul, there.
Yeah.
So what we're looking for is a motion to, is it to issue an order of conditions to approve the project with conditions?
Right, and it was that one, the condition that they would be allowed to, well, the one condition would be reducing the size of the landing.
Right.
And then the other one is for the a report that addresses the potential for natural regrowth due by what did he say, May 15th, did we say?
May 15th.
Yes.
And would that be submitted to Kelly?
It would be submitted to Kelly.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else amongst the commission who has any other comments on this? Mark, you good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience who has any comments or concerns with this project? Raise your electronic hand.
I don't see any hands raised in the audience.
All right. All right, back to the commission then. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Yes, Paul, I'd like to make a motion to issue an order of conditions to approve the project at 20 River Drive in, where is it, South Yarmouth? With the following conditions: that the landing on the stairs be of no bigger than 6 or 6 by 6 in the landing area. And that a planting, pictures of the planting of the area of concern regarding the vegetation be reported to, or shown to Kelly by Kelly Grant by May 15, 2021.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Tom? Okay. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Can I just ask for an amendment to the motion just to include in the monitoring of the trigger point for nourishment on the beach?
Oh, okay, yeah. Paul, are you good with that?
That's fine.
And that we
Okay.
have
hold
the, sorry, and that we have the updated plan before the order is issued.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
All right.
Paul, you're good?
Yes.
Yep.
And Tom?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Kelly, would you call the roll then?
Durkin,
Yeah, aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
All right, next order of business is another continued notice of intent, continued from July 16th for SE 83-2237, Tusher and Karen Misra, 75 Partridge Valley Road, Yarmouth, Massachusetts, proposed seasonal dock on Jabinet's Pond. And I understand we're going to continue this to August 20th, is that right?
We have a request to continue to August 20th, but I also received a letter from the abutter this afternoon asking that the commission not grant the continuance and deny the project as presented. So do you want me to read that letter into the record? I only received it at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to send it to anyone.
So that's the yeah, no, I think
the
yeah, I
abutter
think
who
you
spoke at the previous hearing.
yeah, I think you, if you've summarized his finding, we'll have it available for the record, and I would move to continue. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't move that, but I would ask that somebody make the motion to continue to August 20th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Kelly, you want to call the roll?
Was that Commissioner Bernstein who seconded that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
So the motion carries 5-0 to continue to August 20th.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Next order of business, another continued notice of intent from July 16th, 2020 for SE 83-2238. Margaret Smith for 47 Marchant Avenue, Yarmouth, Massachusetts, proposed reconstruction of an existing licensed dock on Collins Pond. I understand we also have a request to continue this as well to August 20th.
No, we can handle it tonight.
Okay. I'm sorry, who?
So we did receive a request to continue, but then they changed their mind, so they want to go ahead with the hearing tonight.
Okay, we will go ahead and do it then.
Okay, for the record, Mark Burgess again with Shorefront Consulting representing Margaret Smith. So the reason we were going to continue it was because we were looking at options to see what we could do to further improve clearance around the float and such. I was able to get in contact with DEP, and basically anything within the existing footprint would be fine. Anything extending further seaward would require a new license. Even knowing that, we looked into it. We met on site with one of the dock companies. I took some more measurements, and literally it is what it is on the plan. So one of the least expensive ways to go out was to add, maybe change the ramp to 20 feet and then push the float out. All that and what that entails even if you go out another 20 feet, you literally gain about 4 inches. You don't gain that much on the seaward end. You gain a little bit more on the landward end, and I know that's where the concern was, but you'll never get enough water to make anybody happy. So all that extra expense, you know, thousands of dollars for a 20-foot ramp, and then more permitting and more licensing and everything else, it just didn't seem like there was enough bang for the buck. They already have to rebuild the pier, but just to add that much extra cost to it for literally 3 or 4 inches of water just didn't seem worth it. The float stops are going to be needed no matter what. So this way, they're fine with that. I explained how they work. And I wanted to say, in the past, we were looking at float stops thinking that the float stops would be even on the float. And that way, when the float rested, it would be tilted to the ground. But it doesn't have to be that way. In this case, it's a gentle slope, so they have that option. But just for clarity, you could, if the landward side needed to be 2.5 feet off the ground, you would just make the seaward float stop longer so that the float sat level when it rested. So this is a case where you need float stops on all sides of the float, so you can do that. Some of the other projects we've had, there was plenty of depth at the seaward end of the float, so then it would be tilted. So I just wanted to say it's not impossible. I thought about that again. I'm like, wait a minute, we can keep the float level. So whether we do that here or not, I'm not certain yet, but it would be maintained, 2.5 feet, 30 inches off the grade. So after an exhaustive research of trying to figure out how we could improve it, the money to improve it just didn't seem to justify the small amount of improvement we can get. So they're preferring to just keep it where it is. They'll put the float stops in when they replace the float, and everybody's happy.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any discussion among the commission? No. Okay. So there is one issue with the there is still another order that's open. Is that right, Kelly?
Yes, there is.
And that's the order that required the plantings.
That's correct.
All right. So if we don't have any further comment or discussion amongst the commission, the one thing I would suggest is that if we go ahead to move, we should make a motion for this project, but part of that motion should require that those plantings be installed prior to any other work with this permit. So that's my only comment on that. Is there anybody amongst the audience who would have any comments or concerns with this? Just raise your hand electronically if so.
I don't see any raised hands in the audience.
I see none. Last chance amongst the audience for comment. All right, back to the commission. Any further discussion amongst the commission? Kelly, any further comments on this?
I just wanted to clarify what's going to be required with the height per the DMF comments. I understand that I think grating was going to be used for the entire dock, but I just wanted to clarify that the commission is happy with the height as proposed. Did we have a measurement, Mark, for the height above the salt marsh section there? Because I know it's built 4 feet up, but that's not at the salt marsh section, so it's a little higher than that.
Yeah, I have 4 feet at the mean high water line. So yeah, you'd have a little bit more clearance over the salt marsh section. You might actually have 5 feet at the end of the pier. If I'm looking at the plan, I can open the plan and actually measure it, but certainly there's more. You can see the 1 foot, 1 foot, 0. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, you certainly have more than 4 feet over the marsh. If you want to give me a second, I can open up the drawing.
Yeah, I think it's just over 4 feet. So we just need to, the commission just needs to include in their motion as to what they're requiring, if they're accepting the height as proposed, or whether they want to include the 6-foot height requirement that, that DMF have commented. And just for the record, my preference would still be to extend the pier out further and reduce the float size so that there was less impacts with the landward end of the float. But I certainly also understand the cost involved with making that improvement.
Yeah, if I may, they did look at that, and they do have, the pier is currently licensed. And although it's not ideal, it's pre-existing non-conforming. This was the easiest way to try to improve the non-conformance, or decrease the non-conformance by raising it up. Let me get you that dimension for the salt marsh. Hold on. And you know, if you can hear me from here, DMF always wants us 6 feet now, and you've heard me argue against John Logan's report. I don't see any basis for going that high. 5 feet perhaps, and but 6 feet's just excessive. It makes the ramp steep. It is a whole slew of issues why, and his data doesn't support the 6 feet because he didn't sample enough docks at the 6-foot elevation to determine that was actually doing any good. Hold on a second. You have 4.6 feet of clearance on the landward edge of the marsh. And 5.4 feet at the seaward edge of the marsh.
And it's proposed as graded decking?
Did I say that?
I'm not sure. I'm asking for clarification because I don't recall. I'm looking on the plan. I don't see that comment.
Show it in the detail. Hold on.
We can include it as a condition anyway, if that is the commission's choice.
Yeah,
I think I would.
Yeah, it is there as 2x6 decking. If you need to do the grading, that's a fair trade. If we raise it up 1 more foot, the only disadvantage to that is the dock gets more expensive because it has to extend landward to the steps to meet the step, and the ramp gets steeper. There's enough ramp to do it, but it does get steeper. So I don't know if I had to trade off. A dock is about $600 a linear foot. So the through flow grading is $24 a linear foot. So 20, that's only 400. Yeah, it's actually cheaper to put the grading on than it is to extend the dock a foot landward.
Well, that would make sense. Then you would want to grade it, right?
In the long run, like I said, we do what we can to improve these docks. It's a licensed dock, and if somebody wanted to, I'm not saying that we're doing this. If somebody wanted to stand their ground, they would say, look, this is a licensed dock. We have the right to put it and maintain it exactly the way it is. And that means without the float stops and without the grading. So the applicant's been gracious to look into these things, and they're in line with the float stops.
Except that the regulations require that you bring it up to the regulations when you replace the dock.
Is that yours?
Yeah, that's the bylaw.
Huh.
And I know the commission appreciates that while it doesn't state that they view it to the most practical extent possible. So
yeah, well, go ahead and go ahead and do the grading. If I make that decision for the client and they don't want it, then I guess I end up paying for it. So I'll make that decision for them.
All right, any further comment? Would somebody like to make a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, I think I already went to the audience, but I'm going to go back one more time because I don't remember.
There are no hands raised in the audience.
All right, last chance for the audience. If not, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Tom, to issue an order for conditions approving the project of 47 Merchant Avenue with the special conditions as determined by the Conservation Commission as follows. Help me out on these. The grading will be substituted for the wooden planking. The float stops will be included on all four corners of the outer float. Anything else?
Could you
Just
just,
a-
Planting.
sorry, specify the height of the float stops?
I did not hear anything which specified them directly. Could you help me with that, Kelly?
DMF recommend 2.5 feet above the substrate. Our regulations are 3 feet. So that's up to the commission. What
Well,
height
I would
you'd
say
like to-
3 feet then.
Yeah.
Does Mark have any problem with that?
Well, of course I do. You don't want to, when they're at low tide, they use this primarily. They don't have a boat, but they use it for, they have a canoe down there and a kayak. So at 3 feet, you're going to be jumping into the kayak.
Oh, okay. All right. There's a safety issue here, just as there is in the slope of the proposed ramp. Okay, 2.5 feet.
And the other, just to include the other DMF conditions of the time of year restriction. I think that was it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes. The grading portion, does it only have to be over the salt marsh?
There other vegetation under the rest of the dock, or is it just
There's other, to be honest with you, there's other vegetation under there.
I'd rather see it go for the entire, but I mean, it's the you know, I mean, I think that's,
Yeah. Well, just remember they're making this dock from 10 feet down to 4 feet wide too, or 8 feet down to 4 feet wide. That's a lot of cake.
well, in other words, they're just trying to come closer to our regulations.
Yeah, that's the idea.
I think that's what we're aiming for then. So,
Yeah. We're all on the same page there.
okay. And then one last thing to add, the planting as part of the other order.
Yeah.
That'll be done before the work on this procedure begins.
Yes.
Just to add that to the motion, Tom.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Can I just clarify that the grating was going to be over all of the vegetation or just the salt marsh? I didn't catch the end result of that discussion.
I was
Yeah.
saying the whole,
Be over the extent of the coastal beach and salt marsh. It doesn't have to be over that first section of bank, which is the stairs.
Right.
It looks to be more appropriate all the way
Yeah. Okay.
from the beginning to the end.
Okay. Okay. So I'll call the roll. Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Hoops,
aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, everyone.
Next order of business is another continued hearing from July 16th for SC 83-2241, William and Jeanette Aspidis. I can't say that name ever, sorry. 24 Scallop Road, Yarmouth, Massachusetts, proposed modification to an existing license dock within Salt Pond. And I think that's Lynn, right?
Yes, it is. I will just go and allow her to speak. There we go. I've allowed her to speak. She will just need to, oh, she's unmuted. There you go.
Lynn Hamlin, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yay. Again, I'm representing Lynn Hamlin, representing the applicant. This pier is similar to the marks that you just heard. This is a little unique in that it's an existing amnesty license, which is a 99-year license. This pier also had Conservation Commission approval for maintenance back in 1978, and I can document that it existed at least till 1971. And like what Mark had said, in order to not invalidate the current license, we can't work outside the footprint of what was permitted. This walkway, or this, what we're doing, so 3 of the floats, it currently consists of 5 floats. The 3 landward floats land on the salt marsh. My conversations with Kelly, the applicant agreed to remove the 3 landward floats, replace it by an extension of the fixed section with a ramp to the existing floats, except we switched their position so that the ramp would fall on the wider of the 2 floats. This is a very small pier. The walkway is only 3 feet wide. It has a north-south orientation, so it's optimal for sunlight getting underneath it. The other part that's interesting about this pier is that it was all reconstructed off-site. It's all pieces that come together on the property that get attached. So none of this construction occurred on-site. It all happened off-site and was brought on-site and reassembled to the exact specifications of its license. We have the DMF comments. They're the same comments. They comment with everything. I would just repeat that the walkway is 3 feet wide. I consulted with Dan Ojula, who did this design. And with such a small, short, it's over 16 feet, that he felt that raising it, the shadowing provided by the stringers having to go up and over and down would have more impact than just leaving it at its current straight configuration. And also, as far as the float stops go, we're trying to keep we have to keep it, it's not really a try, to the minimal design that it is. So these 2 floats are only held together by 3 pipes, one of which we added to support the ramp. It was only 2 pipes holding this together before. So it's a really small structure, and we've tried to improve it as best we can within the confines of the existing approvals without invalidating the existing approvals. Oh, that's all I have to say unless somebody has a question.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Commissioners, questions, comments? No? Kelly, comments, questions?
Sorry, did Tom have a
No.
question? No. Okay, sorry, I've just lost my report. Lynn, do you know what the current height is above the salt marsh?
Of the fixed section, or the current height is squashing the salt marsh.
Yeah,
We're attempting to improve that. So on the landward, the waterward side, it is 4.5 feet. But when you come back, it obviously is a reduced height because it bangs up against grade where it already exists, where the fixed section exists. So again, we're just trying to do the best we can with what we have.
Okay, so we received the comments from DMF today, and yeah, they had the same comment about the having it at 4.5 feet. So again, it's up to the commission. Ideally, there would be a step up, so it was a little higher, but if they're proposing greater decking, then that would be an improvement. And then also float stops were recommended at 2.5 feet to keep the floats off the substrate. In terms of my other comments, I think that was everything.
Okay, Lynn, you good with grading?
I talk to Dan about grading all the time, and it's his opinion, especially with a pier, a walkway that's this narrow and in this particular orientation, that the framework, you need to beef up the framework to put the grading in, and he doesn't think you gain much. If he's still out there, he can chime in. On this kind of a structure and this such a small structure. With a big structure, the classic 4 foot wide with an extended length to it, it does have a benefit. But with this kind of structure, it's this little, I don't want to say rinky dink, but it's this little thing that just gives them water access that's better than what they're doing on the abutting properties with the moorings and the strings that are going back and forth and completely wiping out the salt marsh beside him. So between the foot traffic and the line that is attached to the land and attached to the boat, that's just like weed whacking the salt marsh all day long. So we feel that this small structure wouldn't really benefit by grading.
Okay. Is there, I mean, is there a way you could pull it up at all? Pull up the clearance at all?
Well, I mean, I did talk to Dan because I'm not the engineer, I'm the wetlands consultant. And what you'd have to do is you'd have to build stairs up, and then you'd have to build stairs down to get to the elevation that we have it now, or else you have to have a ramp, and then you have to start putting pilings in because the ramp's going to be too long and too heavy, and then you have to lengthen it. So to make a fix, which we don't believe is going to gain you much, you end up having a larger impact. It sounds good, and normally it makes good sense, except for this pier enjoys the benefit of its small width and its orientation. And the fact that right now it is literally sitting on top of the salt marsh.
Okay, and what's the deck spacing right now, and what are you proposing?
I don't know what it is right now. It looks pretty spacey if I'm looking at Kelly's pictures. Whatever your standard was, I don't know if you're 3/4 or an inch, Dan did it. Whatever your standard is in your regulation. I don't think you're an inch. I think you're 3/4.
Yeah, well, I think we go 3/4, but I think in this case,
do it an inch. That's fine, if that would help people.
yeah, I mean, I think you know, I think grading, you're still gonna, if you grade, you're still gonna get some sort of an advantage. But I recognize what you're saying about the size of support and that sort of thing. But if you go a full inch, then you know, I think you may end up getting, you know, nearly as much light penetration as you would through grading. So
we're fine with that, and it's just fine. That's a nice compromise.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would say, this is David, I wouldn't want to see it any longer. I kayaked over there just out of curiosity what it looked like from the water. And if you start to make these piers longer, there's no room for boats and what I would call safety. So I like it this length. And certainly I see this as a big improvement.
All right, thanks. Anybody else?
Are we going with the float stops?
A 2.5 foot is what was recommended.
Okay.
I talked to Dan about that too. We don't. So if you put the float stops, you're going to have to put them on all 4 corners, and the float stops are going to be intercepting and banging up and displacing or disturbing the ground more frequently than the float would itself, because they go lower into the water because there's no post. Classically, I like float stops that you build on pilings and it catches the float before it starts causing turbidity. But with these little floats, you'd have to put float stops in all four corners, and the float stops are going to cause, I think, and I think Dan was agreeing with me, or we discussed it, it's going to cause more problems than just leaving the floats alone, and whatever extreme tide they get close to the sediments, it's going to be at a lesser frequency than if you put float stops on them. Again, these are small floats.
I understand that.
Okay, anybody else? Well, I mean, I'll talk about the elephant that's in the room too. I'm looking at two kayaks or a kayak sitting in the middle of the bank there. So I would ask that you explain to your client that they need to store their boats elsewhere, either up on the grass someplace or out. I mean, I don't even care if they keep it out on the dock, but not in the resource area, sitting on vegetation or lack thereof. So
Yeah, I would encourage you to put that as a condition in your order.
I am thinking that that's what we should do. All right, anybody else? Anybody in the audience? I don't see anybody else. Last chance for the audience.
Don't see any hands raised in the audience.
All right. If not, would somebody like to make a motion? We're just moving with the order of conditions with the special conditions. The kayaks, canoes, other watercraft be stored off the resource area, either up on the lawn area or out on the dock. 1 inch spacing for the deck spacing, and we said no on the float stops. Is that right?
I think so.
All right. Well, sounds to me like that's the motion. Then did I get everything?
Sounds like it.
All right. Would somebody like to make that motion then?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second? That was Paul, right? That made that. Paul, you made that, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and Pat seconded. All right. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Sure. Could I just, amend the motion to include any other standard conditions that I would include in the order?
I thought that's why I said right from the start, but yes, we can amend that. Paul, you're good with that?
Yes, I am.
Pat, you're good with that?
Yes.
All right. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you very much.
All right, next order of business is a request for an amended order of conditions for SC 83-2206 Great Island Ocean Club Homeowners Association. This is for the beach parcel off Powers Lane, Yarmouth, Mass. Proposed expansion of previously permitted beach raking area. Who is here for that?
I have unmuted the
George.
applicant.
George?
Doble for Great Island Ocean Club. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, George. Do you want to go ahead and make a brief presentation on this, or?
Yes,
we go right
please.
to okay,
Yes,
go ahead.
please. Good afternoon, Commission members. The Great Island Ocean Club Homeowners Association received an order of conditions issued February 12, 2020 for the machine raking of the beach which borders the Powers Lane properties. After the order of conditions was issued, and much to our surprise, it contained no rake zones identified by the site plan attached dated September 10, 2019, which was prepared from a site plan from 2002. limiting the beach area that could be raked by approximately 50%. The association members in charge of this machine raking request in December were not aware of the no rake zone restrictions, as the site plan presented during the presentation by our engineer was not visible to us, and we didn't see it in the meeting. The association since has had a pre-rake meeting with our landscaper and Kelly on the beach, and the beach raked and witnessed by an Audubon qualified shorebird monitor, and the raking was satisfactory to Audubon, staying away from any wildlife species and vegetation present on the beach. The remaining unraked areas contain snail shells that, after decaying, present a foul smell and present sharp edges that cut small children's feet. Because of this situation, on behalf of the homeowners, we are requesting an amendment to the approved order of condition of February 12th to expand the allowed beach raking areas as specified in the revised site plan dated June 30 attached. Per the order of condition, the raking will be done only under the direct supervision of an Audubon qualified shorebird monitor. We feel allowing these expanded areas to be raked will pose no harm to any endangered habitat or state-listed wildlife. We will continue to be good environmental stewards of the dunes, wildlife, and beach vegetation while enjoying safe enjoyment of the GIOC beach. We feel our past behavior and future commitment through this amendment accomplishes both objectives. We respectfully request your approval, which has the full support of the GIOC board and the vast majority of the 66 homeowners that comprise GIOC. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you, George. Commissioners, any questions?
I guess I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
This is a place I walk often, 3 to 4 times a week. What time of year do we have this snail shell decaying, foul smelling going on?
Well, David, this year it has not occurred. Last year it was, end of July, beginning of August.
Okay, I asked because I don't think I have the best nose in the world, but I never smelled anything there. But
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, David, this year, no, but
Okay.
last year, horrible.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other commission, other questions?
I just have one question. I was looking back at our original hearing date, and that was like August 19th of 2019. And at that point, we weren't even going to allow any machinery on the beach for raking at all. And I mean, we've already amended it once for more for the machinery, and it just seems we've given quite a bit of approval to cleaning this beach. I don't know how much more is necessary. Just my opinion.
Pat,
Okay. George?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
When back in September, this, as you know, the GIOC permit expires every 5 years. When it was close to being expired last September, it was put in the hands of our landscaper who hand raked the beach. He did not have any machinery available to rake it. And quite frankly, the people who use the beach for the most part weren't aware that this was being renewed. That's our fault. There was a lack of communication within GIOC. But had we knew that the raking permit was going to be renewed, we would have asked for the expanded raking at that time, because there's relatively new machines on the market. And I think and then when I was there in February, there's a machine that's 34 inches wide that shakes the shells, leaves the sand, and does a very nice job. So I apologize for our lack of communication last September and our missight in February. But back in September, this should have, what we're asking for in this amendment is what we should have asked for. Because there's, unless you rake up the snail shells, and I even talked to the Audubon shorebird monitor when we were trying to hand rake it, you cannot hand rake those shells. We had somebody hand rake it, and Kelly was there. We interviewed my landscaper. They set up screeds to screen the shells so they didn't take any sand off the beach. But you just can't rake the shells that way. It's humanly impossible. Other beaches use it. There's a beach that I looked at in Hyannis, the West Point Beach Club or West something Beach Club, that uses this machine, and it does a wonderful job.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else amongst the commission?
Just one comment. Sorry, Paul.
No, go ahead.
Just one comment. As I walk through there often, and different times yes and different times no, people do seem to store their items on the coastal dune, and I'm going to guess it's more perhaps people who rent from the owners. And I'm wondering if there's some kind of communication that can be put out by the association, the GIOCHA, to educate people not to do that. Just a comment.
David, this is George again.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. About a year ago, people were leaving beach chairs, broken beach chairs, those big tents on the beach overnight. We put signs on, well, first of all, at the last homeowners meeting, we told them that's not allowed. And we put specific signs on each of the 4 entrances to the beach saying, any of your beach gear needs to be removed every night before you leave. And if you take a walk, I can take a walk out here right now. There is nothing left on the beach. If there's something left on the beach, I'm one of the people that will put a note on that chair the next day asking them to respect people's property.
I'm not referring to the beach itself, because when I'm there at 6:30 in the morning, people are already putting out their chairs. I'm talking about the actual dunes and where the planting is, that sometimes people will store, they'll take it off the beach and they won't carry it back to the house. They'll put it there. It's not, I'm not saying it's all the time. I'm not saying it's the same house. I'm going to guess that some houses get rented and therefore people don't know better. I just think that communication, when you rent a house there, you need to tell people, bring your stuff back home.
David, that's a good point, and I'll suggest at the homeowners meeting this fall that all people who rent their homes add that to the list of requirements and things we're looking for.
Thank you.
Well, Ed.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, just a point of clarification here. So this is a request to increase the raking area. Are they talking about raking, starting, doing the raking soon again? It must have been cleaned up earlier, but now is it the intention of the association to rake it like, next week or next month or what?
Well, Paul, originally we had contacted the people with this beach raking machine, and because of the coronavirus, they come down and rake once a month now. They used to have a team here all summer long, but with some of the hotels suffering because of the tourist business, they're raking less. So to answer your question, I don't think we plan to have it raked before the end of the year.
Okay, because there was another suggestion about allowing a pre-season cleanup pre-April 1st along the entire beach, and then a limit to the raking areas after that. Would that be, is that an idea that would be worth pursuing?
Paul, the way I read the order of conditions in February was that spring cleaning rake up was only applied to the current rake areas. We could not clean up the no rake areas.
And the no rake areas, would they still be, are they closer than 10 feet from the vegetated areas?
No,
I mean,
no. The order of condition and the February 12 order of conditions says we need to stay at least 10 feet away from any dune or vegetation. If there's sea rocket plants that are 10 feet or 20 feet away from the dunes, we need to stay away from those sea rock, any on beach vegetation. And there's a lot of sea rocket plants in the spring.
and so this request for amended order would maintain that 10 feet of it away from the vegetated areas, correct?
Yes, we would be, Paul, we would be happy if we were leave the order of conditions of February 12 intact, but just eliminate the no rake zones per our site plan.
Are you all set, Paul?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion among the commission?
Not the no rake zones in front of the nesting areas only.
No,
No.
the nesting areas, well, this past year, the nesting areas changed throughout the spring. The Audubon Shorebird Monitor kept roping off different areas, but our order of conditions dated February 12th says that we, in addition to staying 10 feet away from the dunes and away from any vegetation, we need to, where any shorebirds are roped off, any raking close to that needs to be under the direct supervision and guidance of the Audubon Shorebird Monitor. When we raked in June, I think, the piping plovers were still staked out because they kept moving up and down the beach. And the shorebird monitor, the Audubon Shorebird Monitor was there telling us where we can rake and where we couldn't rake. That was Jess Peterson. And that's also in the order of conditions.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have one other question.
Yep, Paul.
So could Kelly indicate on this this diagram, this map that's on the screen, with her cursor, if she has that capability, to show where the raking is allowed now and where the raking would extend to if this was amended? Is that possible?
Yes, I could do that. So I will start at the top. I broke this into sections so it would be a bit easier to see. So this is the
Yep.
top end of the beach, and you can see here this area is proposed. This area beside it was already approved. This is one of the only areas that was in front of the nesting area. So, but the order of conditions, as George mentioned, was written so that those areas had special monitoring wherever there were nesting birds. Those areas had special monitoring if they needed to rake those areas. This area all along here is proposed. So it's an area where they're looking to expand the raking.
Yep.
And then if we go on to the, oops, sorry, I went the wrong direction. That continues down this whole section here, in front of, if you were out there, you could see there was the area of the sea rocket plant. So it's seaward of those plants. And then this larger area here was already approved. And then this is the end section. So this is that previously approved section. And then this is the new proposed section, which I think was excluded because it's in front of those 2019 nesting areas. And then this was a previously approved section at the end here.
Okay. And also there was, if I may, there was also a concern by one of the association members about raking in front of her property.
So that's
you
this
lo-
property here, where you can see the vegetation is a lot thinner, and so the raking area extends up closer to her property boundary.
Yep.
And I think part of the reason for that is that this is a main access to the beach, and so people probably walk through this area a bit more. So I think the vegetation hasn't had the opportunity to take hold to the same extent that it has along some of these other areas. So she's expressed concern from the very beginning of this project that it's destabilizing the dune area in front of her property. So I, in my notes, had suggested to address her concerns that maybe this line along here be extended about, I think it's about 20 feet off her property line to allow this area in here to not be raked, just so that it has the opportunity to get a bit better vegetated, so she has that protection for her property. There's already an extensive area of raking approved in this location, so I didn't think that that would be particularly onerous for the association to try and kind of protect this area a little bit more for her interests.
So if these proposed areas are raked, number one, they would be marked off before they're raked. Secondly, there would be an Audubon person out there kind of monitoring this whole thing.
Yeah, so pre-season before April 1st, they would be able to do the pre-season cleanup, and so I would be meeting them out on site to, and the area of raking would be staked. And I think that it should be made clear that the conditions in the order override to a certain extent the plan, because the plan delineates a dune and it delineates plant areas, but that changes. So I think it's very important to reference those conditions in the order, which say that there should be no raking within 10 feet of the toe of the dune or any vegetation. And then I can agree that area before they rake it, and that would be staked in advance. So I certainly think it would even be worth including a note on the plan to that effect, that the areas are subject to change and need approval when we have that pre-raking meeting, just so that we are well clear of, because that, toe of dune can be kind of variable depending on who's looking at it, and just to make sure we remain clear of the vegetation.
Okay, and one other question, if I may, again, about I think he referred to them, the gentleman referred to them as snails or something, shells along the beach. Does that present any difficulty in terms of removing that type of thing, as far as, I don't know, birds feeding on those kinds of things, or is it just like, dead stuff on the beach?
Paul, those shells are dead. They've been there for 10 or 15 years.
Oh.
Because they're way up above even the high water rack line.
Okay.
But those shells are also things that provide means by which new dunes grow.
Yeah, I thought there was an important reason they were there.
And they're, certainly the dead things that are inside them, they may not be readily visible, but they certainly are being consumed by, smaller invertebrate type, invertebrate type animals that are, food for, I don't want to say real animals, but what I'm saying that, so anyhow, I think my only comments about this is that, it's a beach. Beaches have shells. Shells have things that are living and dead in them. And I don't know, if you don't like the smell of the beach, then, what can I say? That's my comment, so.
I agree, because sometimes it seems in these raking types of things that you know, I kind of understand where the property owners want to make it a really clean, nice beach, but a really clean, nice beach is not really a natural beach.
No,
And so
and
that's where
we're
I-
not Miami Beach.
That's what I mean. And so it's a difficult decision. You don't want to curtail the use of the beach by the folks who live there and pay for that property. But at the same time, there's important reasons why that stuff is there.
Right. Right. Any further comments among Tom?
Yeah, just one question directed towards Kelly. In the suggestions, the recommended conditions that you have on page 11, the first recommendation is hand raking only, no machinery on the beach. I'm somewhat confused about that, Kelly.
That was this has all of the comments from all of the previous hearings for this. So when this was first proposed, there was hand raking only was what was being proposed. And so that was the recommended condition. And then that's when they came back for their first amended order of conditions and asked for the machine raking. So I've the page that we're referring to just includes all of the notes going back to the very beginning of this project, which is why.
Okay, that's historical rather than present day.
That's right.
Thank you.
This is Pat. I just wanted to make a comment.
Yeah.
This area is a mapped habitat for the piping plover nesting areas. And so NHESP still hasn't really made comments on the proposal, I'm under the impression. And
That's correct. Yeah, we haven't received their comments yet, so we would need to continue to wait for their comments.
And just to say that you're lucky enough to have these nesting areas because you have such a nice natural beach in these areas. It's just a lovely thing to have, and maybe these birds like it because there are little shells here and there, and it's more natural than the beach maybe in Hyannis because they don't have the piping plovers there.
Pat, can I answer? Pat, the shells are in the proposed areas.
Mm-hmm.
The nesting areas, if you can look at the map that Kelly showed, are where the sea rocket plants come below, south of the dunes. If you were to walk along in the spring when Audubon ropes off the areas for the terns and the piping plovers, they're nowhere near the area between the sea rocket plants where they're roped off for the piping plovers in the area that we would like to remove some of the shells.
Okay.
Just a correction to that though, because that whole beach area is foraging area for the nesting birds, so they don't retain themselves just within the fenced area. They use the whole beach as a food source while they're nesting and fledging.
And it also required natural heritage regulations require that Mass Audubon mark off potential nesting area, not all nesting area, just potential. And so what they're doing is they're maximizing the amount of beach that they protect at first, and then they change the fenced areas based on in terms of when the pairs set up their territory and where the nesting actually occurs. So there's more to it than just, you know, it's not if you post it, they will come, and they will only come to this area that I posted. This is just an area that they start with. So, and as Kelly said, they're foraging.
And yes, and that area is fluid throughout the spring. It's fluid all springs, and Audubon continues to move their roped off areas as the plovers and terns pick their site, if you will. And in the order of conditions, we're prohibited from raking by those roped off areas. And if when we were hand raking because we couldn't get the machines due to the virus a couple of months ago, the shorebird monitor was there and said, oh, they're moving. And we made sure, and she made sure that we were nowhere near piping plovers, whether they were marked off or not. There were some.
I understand that. That's all part of the order of conditions.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion among the commission?
I just sent Kelly 2 pictures from the beach I took yesterday. And I have to be honest with you, I'm having a hard time seeing, I see shells, but a lot of shells. I don't see a lot of shells. I don't know if Kelly can share those or not.
Okay,
I'm not able to share those.
Yeah, let's not worry about that right now. But we'll
Okay.
I mean, we'll take your observation, you know, your word of the observation. Any further discussion amongst the commission? Anybody in the audience have any comments, concerns with this? If not, I don't see any hands being raised. Last chance amongst the audience.
Just for the record, I received a number of emails of support from association members for the project.
Okay, if you would just add those to the file, please.
Yeah.
Make them available. All right. So we can't. Well, I mean, we could close. We can take a vote, but we can't do anything, close anything until we get natural heritage comment back. But if somebody would like to make a motion, we can go ahead and do that and hold for natural heritage comment only for next time.
Ed, one more comment.
Yeah.
I did send a letter to Natural Heritage. They gave us an approval back in February. Can we make this, can we take a vote subject to a favorable ruling by Natural Heritage?
Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. We're going to take a vote, and it will be dependent upon what the comments of Natural Heritage have to say for this proposal.
Thank you.
All right, would somebody like to make a motion then? This is just a motion to approve the amended order.
Well, I make the motion to approve the
Right.
amended order.
Tom,
wait.
thank you.
Sorry, are we not continuing to wait for their comments?
We can make the motion. We just have to wait for it. Has to be. Oh wait, maybe we shouldn't do that then, right?
Yeah, I
In case they
recommend.
change. Yeah, in case they change something. If Natural Heritage comes back and says, you know, you got to do this, this, and this, then we would be, you know, up the creek. So, so let's just
bring it back to us then.
Right. So let's just make a motion to continue to August 20th.
I make a motion we continue August 20th if that's what Kelly would recommend.
A second.
All right, you're good with that, right, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Was that seconded by Paul?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Oops,
This is just to continue, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to continue to August 20th for the receipt of the Natural Heritage comment letter.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, George. Next order of business is a certificate of compliance for SE 83-2133327 Great Island Road, Yarmouth, Massachusetts. Kelly, it's looking good with the issue with ongoing conditions 15, 18, and 19.
That is correct.
All right. Any further discussion amongst the commission? And may I have a motion to issue the certificate?
So moved, David.
All right. Is there a second?
Second, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Kelly, call the roll, please.
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Next order of business, another certificate of compliance for SE 83-201046 Doherty Lane, Yarmouth, Massachusetts. And I've lost my notes here.
I recommend issuing the COC for this one. The work was carried out per the approved plan.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there a motion to issue the COC?
So moved, Tom.
Tom, thank you. Is there a second?
Paul.
Paul, thank you. Kelly, call the roll, please.
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to issue the COC.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to other business. How are the June 4th, 2020 meeting minutes? Anybody read them? And
I make a motion that we accept as printed an excellent job for the June 4th, 2020 minutes.
all right, thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Pat.
Second, Pat, I heard you first.
Okay.
All those, I'm sorry, Kelly, could you call the roll, please?
Hoops,
Aye.
Durkin,
Aye.
Mulhern,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
and Huggins.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, so next order is a appointment of a commission secretary. We have been without a secretary since, who was that
Phil?
silver-tongued devil?
was
Phil
out.
Johnston, when he did the job for many years. We've had Ellie filling in sort of when she could as well. But it's time to appoint a full-fledged secretary, and with that is going to come some new responsibilities because we weren't really doing what we were supposed to be doing in terms of the position of secretary for many years. So we do have to get a little bit more in line with what the secretary is supposed to do as a commission secretary. So Kelly, did you have a chance to look anything for a position description or anything, or?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
That's okay.
I meant to.
I could have found the
have,
time, couldn't I?
I have a short list of things which would be keeping track of approvals of minutes and attendance in terms of if people have been at a hearing, you know, whether they need to sign an affidavit saying that they've listened to the audio, like keeping track of things like that
Right.
procedurally for the meeting, and then recording the votes and the motions on the voting sheet as Phil did in his role.
And normally, I mean, typically the commission secretary is usually the one that will also make all of the they typically make the motions for the commission. So it's a little bit more responsibility that way. It takes a little bit more time to you know, you have to sort of keep everything straight and be fluid enough that you can take any changes to the discussion and add those into the motion then. So with that, would anybody like to throw anything in about secretary?
Did I understand you had,
Yeah.
excuse me. Did I understand you had to say that all motions will be made by the commission secretary?
I mean, typically, we don't have to do that, but typically that's what the secretary of the commission typically does actually make the motions.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure I heard you.
But again, we don't have to. Yeah, we don't have to do anything, but that's traditional. Is anybody have anybody who would they like to nominate themselves, or was there somebody who they would like to nominate to spite themselves? Or this is always a good one to, you can do your revenge on somebody. It's like by making,
Particularly if they're not here.
especially when they're not here. That's the best way to do it. Anybody? It's gonna have to happen sooner or later.
Can I make a suggestion? Maybe this is a topic we should talk about when Rick and Ellie are here too. Maybe next
Okay.
meeting.
Well, we can't nominate Rick or Ellie then. That's the only, well, we could, but they might say no if they're present.
No, I'm not saying we do that. I think we talk
I know.
about it again, or you know,
No,
postpone it to the next meeting, and then they'll be here to, maybe they're dying to be the secretary. I don't know.
I think that's a wise decision. We could probably, but I would like everybody to think about it over the next 2 weeks. Think about, you know, and maybe if you would have time, you could take a look at the MACC website and see. They have I think they have a position description for all the position of the officers for a commission. So that might give you some guidance as to whether or not you'd like to take it or like to nominate somebody else. So, and then we'll try and make sure that Ellie and Rick know as well. And we'll make our decision to, you know, definitely make our decision one way for somebody for next meeting, if that sounds all right.
Sure.
Sounds fine. May I make a suggestion, and I kind of bounce this off Kelly, and not to add to her plate by any means, but a very brief 1/2 a paragraph thanks to Phil for his work over the number of years that he's held this position. Perhaps make that available at the next meeting, and we all could sign it and send it off to him.
Sure, we can do that.
Huh?
Yes, that's fine. I can do that.
Okay.
I think that's sort of just to bring that along, Tom. That was going to be one of my other ends to this too. That
Don't mean to step on your parade there, Ed.
No. Everybody's good with waiting until next meeting for the appointment, nomination and appointment, and to that same vein, then what Tom was saying is, like, I think we do have to recognize Phil for his many years of service to the commission. He was one of those commissioners that rarely missed a meeting. He was there through thick and thin, rarely missed a meeting, and did perform the services as a secretary for many years as well. And traditionally, it's difficult to do it in the days of COVID, but traditionally, it has been the position of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission for somebody who has served like Phil has done, where he's served more than 10 years, that we also provide him with a chair. It's a handmade chair from the factories up in Gardner, with the town of Yarmouth seal on it. We've traditionally taken up a collection and purchased the chair for a presentation at some point. I don't know when we're going to be able to present it to him, but I think we should also be considering this at some point, because again, he does deserve it. And I used to joke back and forth which one of us was going to get a rocker. We were so old before we quit. So I don't think we need to get him a rocker, but we should be getting him a chair at some point, and then making that presentation sometime in the maybe hopefully in the late fall. So
Thank you, Ed. Well said.
and I just say it now because it takes a long time for the chairs to be made. They are handmade. So anyhow, that's something else to think we can think about that for next week as well. All right, so we're all good with that. Any staff updates, Kelly?
We had Commissioner Huggins' comments on there first, if you wanted to.
Oh, okay. So Paul, you want to go ahead and make your comments on fee
No,
discussion?
just a couple of questions before I do that. I don't want to launch into anything too much, but I know I sent off an email that evidently was a problem, but I'm assuming maybe everybody read it. But anyway, are we going to be discussing fees again in any future meeting? Because it wasn't the topic, obviously, that came up. It generated some conversation, and I wondered if we're going to return to that.
At some point, yeah, I think we will. The commission meetings have just been rather brutally long. If I listen to my wife, she tells me far too long.
Yeah.
So
I don't necessarily want to extend the meeting. You know, again, I'll save my my comments, my rationale for how I think fees should be handled for that future meeting, and I'll leave it at that at this particular point. But thank you for the opportunity to say something.
Okay.
May I add a small comment to that? I know your recommendations for our consideration, Paul, will be extensive, but I was thinking about this the other day, and there is a dollar value that we can assign to Kelly's efforts, an hourly dollar value. And I think that's something that we should keep in the back of our mind. For example, if there is a particular project to be discussed, as far as a permit is concerned or something, how long does it take Kelly to do this, both administratively and in person and in communication with the citizen? It's just a thought.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly think about that, and I mean that might give Kelly some time to put some things together as well. And it's just the other thing, just so everybody understands, but you know, there's nothing wrong with you addressing your comments to the entire board. But I just again remind everybody, if they're going to send out something about comments on any topic whatsoever that's addressed to the entire board, that they just make sure that they send it to Kelly only, and then Kelly, you know, because of the open meeting laws, the way they are, Kelly will then be able to distribute it, and it would be considered a legal distribution of those comments. It's just that we can't make the comments directly to other commissioners, especially if it's to the whole board, because you know, some people will view that as having some sort of a negotiation, and that's essentially the same reason why when we go out to dinner as a group at Christmas time, we actually end up sending putting in an agenda or a notice that's saying we're going to be meeting, but we're not discussing any comment or any projects at that point. So just again, it's not that we can't do it, it's just that you have to just make sure you direct your comments to Kelly first, and only to Kelly first, and then she can distribute them. And sometimes it's easy to forget. I mean, I just spoke, you know, Rick just did the same thing very recently, and it was an oversight mistake that, you know, he meant to send it to one person rather than, you know, the whole group, but he hit, you know, especially in today's, you know, with email, you hit the wrong button or the wrong group, and you've sent out your intelligence test results to the entire address book or whatever. So anyhow.
Yeah, just one thing, I'm sorry, to add to Tom's comments, actually. I think that you're absolutely right that we should consider some of those kinds of hourly expenditures that Kelly makes. But part of my point, and maybe just can consider this, is I don't have any information about where the money goes and how it comes back to conservation. So if we consider, for example, it takes Kelly, 5 hours to do something, and that's all well and good. But do the fees then come back to kind of, quote unquote, reimburse her time? I just don't know that. So if we can get that kind of information, it'd be great. I don't know how much money is generated from the conservation fees. Again, I don't know how it comes back. If it comes back, I don't know how it's factored into the establishment of her salary. I don't know any of those things. So if I can get some information, I would appreciate it, and I would think it would enlighten everybody. That's all.
I think that's a good point. And I think maybe that's how we should start off, maybe by having a more of a general release of information that does exactly what you were saying, Paul. It's like, this is how fees go in. This is how much time we spend. This is how fees go in. This is how fees come back. This is what we have in the different funds that we have. And these are the funds, because I don't know how many people actually know exactly what funds the Conservation Commission actually even has. So, and maybe that would be the better first start, is to do like a general primer on, wetland fees and that sort of thing, and we'll go from there.
That'd be appreciated.
Okay, so that's what we'll at some point. I mean, it's not going to be right soon, because I think we still have some relatively good sized agendas coming up, but we will revisit everything eventually.
Great, thanks.
All right. Any other comments from any other commissioner? Anybody have any other news?
Does anybody have any idea when we might be meeting again, and when town hall's opening or anything like that?
Well, Kelly, you said it's open right now, right? Limited hours?
Yeah, just the upstairs offices are open 10 till 2 with limited access. I think like 4 people are allowed in at a time. I don't anticipate that we're going to be meeting in person for quite a while yet, given the current situation. So I think we'll be just continuing with this format.
Okay, and I hate to ask this again, but is everybody still good with 4:30, or would you like to move it up a little, or move it back a little bit more, or do you want to go back to 6:30, or?
I like 4:30.
I like
4:30. 4:30.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep it at 4:30 for now.
Paul, how do you do?
Pardon?
4:30 good for you?
Yeah, good.
How about Pat?
Yes, I like 4:30.
Okay, well, we'll continue to work toward that on that schedule then, unless we hear something different from any of the commissioners. So if we don't have anything else to add or raise for today, then would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
No staff updates?
Oh, staff updates?
I don't have anything further at this point. I've got a number of violations that are in the works, but I'm putting those all on the next agenda, which again is going to be a long agenda. So,
well, that's what we live for. Okay, and so nothing else then?
no.
I was just wondering when we're going to get, I guess we can't get together, but to discuss the regulations again. We had that one meeting.
We could do a separate, I mean, we could do a separate Zoom meeting if the commissioners have any interest in doing that. We could work something out for that. But I mean, you don't have to decide right now. We just think about it for the next meeting, whether or not you'd like to try and do another regulation scoping meeting. And that would just have to be something that we did mostly off of our normal meeting schedule.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn, that is?
So moved, David.
All right, David, he's making a motion toward the secretary's position, I think. That's.
No, I'm not.
All right, so it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second. Paul.
Right. Kelly, would you call the roll?
Sure. Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we are adjourned at 6:51 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Kelly,